Okay, peace. Peace for another episode here of my channel on the subconscious mind and everything related to healing and well-being. So I'm with my boy Jeff from Lightbodywellbeing, and Jeff is a sound healer, and he has spent years developing himself, researching, testing, everything related to sound healing in the mind. But Jeff is also a hypnotist and a wellness coach as well, right? So you're a jack of all trades. So I want you to say what's up to the people out there.
Okay, well, what's up, everybody? My name is Jeffrey from lightbodywellbeing.com. My main thing I would say, though, is also the holistic nutrition. That's my specialty. Then the sound came, and combining that with understanding of hypnosis and meditation is where I'm also starting to introduce now. So I wouldn't necessarily consider myself a hypnotist, but I do use some of those techniques for healing. And that's what I do.
I love your calm Zen vibe. Like, even when you talk, you know what I'm saying? I'm already going into a trance. I'm like, yeah. you can just count. Just relax, Jonathan. 5, 4. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's pretty good. So yeah, I'm a bit of a joker, but we are going to get into some deep topics in this hour. Tell me a little bit about what got you interested in sound.
Sound. So while I was getting into the research of holistic nutrition, I started to get into numbers. That's actually where it began first. And there I was learning and seeing patterns in numbers, especially dealing with the number 9 and how many number sequences would add up to number 9 when you keep adding all of them together. So for instance, if you take 1, 2, and 3, 1 plus 2 plus 3 is 3 plus 3, which is 6. So I started to notice patterns in that. And one day I found this chart and this person who was doing research at that time on 432, the whole thing with the 432 hertz tuning. And seeing that 4 plus 3 plus 2, getting more into it, I saw that there was a basis of 432 tuning with, the planets, the cosmos, with sound. And then from there, I learned more about the different ways sound is used for healing in the body and the mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you do, so tell us a little bit more about how sound affects the body and the mind. I know you have a lot of research, and you're going to show us diagrams and an instrument. Before you do that, though, tell us, I want you to really go into how it affects the body, the mind, the why 432 is important, wavelengths, all that stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So I would start like this. Generally, we all know sound has an effect with emotions, relaxation, making us feel more motivated, happy. But what's going on in the body? So in my research, some of the key things that I found were Dr. Ranjit Singh. So I'll just show you quickly his book here. So this is Dr. Ranjit Singh's book, Self-Healing Powerful Techniques. And he goes into how sound, along with breathing and visualization, but primarily a sound technique, increased the melatonin levels of his those in the studies with cancer. And some of them had such an increase of 550% melatonin.
Sorry, brother, could you talk a little louder? Because
Yeah.
this is important. People need to hear this.
For sure. So his clients, his participants in the study had an increase of some up to 550% melatonin levels by using the sound technique, dealing with the ooh and the om sound and other breath and visualization techniques that combine with that. And then, so the book goes into how melatonin helps with all these conditions right here. So as you can see, from cancer to high blood pressure, cholesterol, insomnia, Alzheimer's, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I started to think, okay, wait a second, what's going on? So he explains in the book that the pineal gland directly gets activated through sound.
Mm.
So the kind of things that we hear on a daily basis, people's voices, music, sound pollution, sound coming off of your technology, whatever, directly affects the pineal gland to either shut it down or to increase its melatonin output.
Mm.
And so that was one big thing for me. Another one is Dr. John Boulot, as shared with his book here as well. So he mainly deals with the tuning forks, and he has this technique called biosonic repatterning. Basically, he takes the tuning forks and a combination of them over the body. And what he found is that when you play two notes together, the C note and the G note, you create an effect that you create, first of all, it's a harmonic. So those who are into a little bit of music theory, that's called the perfect fifth harmonic, which is one of the main and harmonious sound combinations in music. He found that when you play these two notes together, you create more nitric oxide in your body. So nitric oxide is a chemical that dilates your blood vessels. So that helps with relaxation, that helps with digestion, that helps with your thinking, that helps with your sports performance, and anything else that uses blood in the body, which is everything. So he went into that, and he has some other techniques in the book that he uses. And one other main piece that I want to share with you deals with Dr. Mitchell Gaynor in this book, The Healing Power of Sound. So he's a Western trained oncologist, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And he found that using these sound and breathing techniques really helped his patients. And later on, we'll see that there's other people who've done things with sound, like Fabian Maman, in which the cancer cells actually explode through using sound.
Crazy.
And just to kind of dive a little deeper into it right now, everything in life is symmetry, is coherence. So even our bodies right now, as we're alive, is alive because we have a sense of order that's keeping us together. Same within nature, same within every structure you look at. Otherwise, it'll just collapse. So what happens is that cancer cells or any kind of virus, or let's just say cancer cells, are lack of symmetry. They're distorted. So sound, especially when it's tuned to 432 hertz, is symmetrical. So if you take something that has order and something that doesn't have order, this is going to have to adjust. And in that adjustment, it either turns healthy or it explodes. And that's what happened in the study there. So these are some of the things that sound has done in the body.
That's amazing. So already I got questions because I want to tie it back to today's music, hip hop and stuff like that. But I want to talk about that later because of something you said about harmony and harmonizing things. I've read, and you could help me with this, that sound, when you play, like somebody has one instrument, it can tune with another instrument close by or something like that.
Yeah.
And what do they call that? I think they call that
resonance.
Pardon?
Resonance.
Resonance. Yes. Could you speak a little bit more about that? Because to me, that sounds like what you were saying when they introduce sound into, they introduce an order into a disorder.
Yeah.
Is that trying to create resonance?
Exactly. Healthy cells will resonate with coherent sound. And not only will they resonate with it, but they will gain energy from it.
Ooh, that's deep.
I want to show you here a picture of one of Fabian Maman's studies. So what you're seeing here, so this is the book, The Tao of Sound. So at the top, you notice that you have pictures of cells. Now, the cells go from a lack of color to that bluish purplish color when sound is introduced. And the other ones below are cells that are exposed to different musical notes and how they react.
Mm. So down to the cells, they're reacting at the cellular level to sound.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I want to throw in, there's a man named George Lavoisky back in the 40s, I believe, in America. He was doing a lot of amazing research with sound, with these machines that send this electronic pulse or magnetic field into the body. He found that each sound or each cell has a certain resonance. And so that means each sound has a certain effect on a particular cell in the body.
Mm.
And there's 12 sounds. And then, so when I researched body systems, there's also 12 major body systems. So I'm like, okay, possibly here we are again, beings of sound, and this could be one of those links.
The patterns you talked about, patterns in numbers.
Yeah. And one other thing that I want to mention, Dr. June Leslie Whiter, in this book, Song of the Spine, she actually shows how the spine actually has a scale in it of music.
Wow.
So going down this way, you have from C, you have the diatonic or the heptatonic scale, which is C, D, E, F, G, A, B, back to C. So over here, you can see that pattern, and then it repeats again. So and the way she found it is that she tested different tuning forks and using muscle testing techniques on each vertebrae. And she found that certain vertebrae would respond. There'll be a different strengthening or weakening with a particular sound on that vertebrae. So then she charted it down. So we're really just sound beings.
Mm-hmm. We're just tapping the surface. But it's funny that the ancients stressed a lot on sound. A lot. I spent time with some of the not the Iroquois, some of the Ojibwe and out west, and they chant, they beat the drums. Sounds are really, really important for them in their healing, their traditional healing, in their communication with their ancestors and everything they do. They have songs for different things, songs for healing, songs for guidance. And of course, as indigenous people, African people, ancient people too, sound, the drum, that's our thing. So could you tell me from your understanding, what connections have you learned regards to the modern research on sound and kind of maybe the ancient understanding of sound? If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm familiar that in Egypt,
A little louder, a little closer to the mic, though, please.
I'm familiar that in Egypt, sound was used as a major healing modality as well. And that when people were sick, they were given the remedy, like a physical remedy, and then at the same time, a certain chant or affirmation that they were to say. In other lectures, I would hear things like in other native cultures, they would sing. So when people had broken bones, they would sing and heal those bones sometimes overnight.
Wow.
And when you combine that with the modern look of it, even now in hospitals and in other clinics that I think deal with hearing, they use a tuning fork, I believe the C tuning fork, 512, over bones. And depending on what they hear as the difference, because there's a resonance going on, they can tell if the bone is injured or fractured or healthy or weak. So there is a lot of modern stuff going on. People like Dr. Peter Guy Manners with the SIMA, I believe it's called the SIMA 100. Basically, he does stuff with uh, pumping frequencies into the body for healing. We have people even now like Aileen McCusick over here, and this is her book. Just like Dr. John Boileau is also using tuning forks for creating that resonance in the body. And another thing I want to mention is amazing research in the area called biophotons. So biophotons is basically photons that are coming from our bodies, coming from our DNA. And what they found, Dr. Konstantin Korotkov in Russia and many others, is that this energy comes from food, from our body, from the earth, and can be absorbed into our body. But sound is one of the strongest forces that actually increases your biophotonic emission. So when you're there and you're chanting and you're doing your ohms or whatever, or you're just singing, or you're singing your gospel, your affirmations, whatever it is, you're freestyling, and you're adding the energy of your heart, which is one of the strongest magnetic fields in the body, and you're combining that energy with the sound energy, you're creating this dynamic force, which now has the potential to heal, has the potential to affect reality, physical objects. Some people may be familiar with something called acoustic levitation. You can even YouTube it, in which sound is being used to levitate objects. Mm-hmm. There are stories of Westerners who went to Tibet and witnessed large boulders being levitated like they were made of, cotton candy, mm-hmm. while the monks were playing instruments. So yeah, there's a lot of ancient and modern connections.
Excellent. Alexa, you really went deep there, man. And I love how you brought in the heart and the idea of the heart and how it links to sound. It's so amazing how all this ties together, because the biophotons, they're the particles that make up light, correct?
That's right.
Right. And so light is always connected with sound. So it's like where bodies are giving off light and our bodies are responding to light and our bodies are responding to sound, and it also gives off sound. Mm-hmm. Our heart is a rhythm, the drum in our chest. Right. I've often heard that as well. So when you say we are sound beings, that is, they're now catching up to what the ancients already knew, which is my feeling. I have a question on what you think about today's hip hop, today's frequency of hip hop, because I'm old school, so I'm biased. Mm-hmm. I grew up with old school hip hop, so I understand that today's hip hop is not really for me.
That's right.
It's for the younger generation, but I find that the frequency of it is disturbing. It doesn't make me feel good. Some of the beats are catchy, mm-hmm. and I just don't feel good when I'm listening, versus the feeling I used to get in my heart when I used to listen to the old school hip hop. Yeah. Even though some of it might have been silly or they weren't even saying nothing, it's just a feeling, the vibe, the beats, mm-hmm. the creativity in them, So please talk to me about today's hip hop and sound.
Well, I want to add to that. Today's hip hop is not for me either. It's out there in the public. And even for me growing up, most of the music was, that. Even although it got even worse now with the whole trap music, it was still pretty bad. Hip hop today is another tool of destruction. So how is it proven, or how could we say that with studying sound? So notice how before the music was more kind of jazzy, still had that hip hop touch to it. Mm-hmm. And now it's become more of this hardened heart type of music, this hard beats and hard stops. So on one end, we can say that the sound we already know the frequency has been already manipulated, the 432 base frequency. On another end, we have the lyrics, which also work as a way of getting the message of the destruction into our brain. Very similar to the whole thing with hypnosis. First, you set the rhythm, in which it feels good, which is the instrumental. And then you set the lyrics, which then gets that in those beliefs, those thoughts into your brain. And another thing I would say too is the instruments. Before, we're using organic instruments. We're using drums. We're using, piano. We're using saxophone. We're using, even if it was synthetic, it would be trying to replicate that natural instrument. Now it's more like straight electronic. Even the voice is getting electronic with the whole auto-tune thing.
Right. Yeah.
See, so there's this trend of swaying from biologic, organic, 432, coherent, ordered, natural, to technologic, hardened, very distorted, lacking emotion. You see it in the music, you hear it in the auto-tune, and then of course you see it in how people act.
The results.
That's right. It's a scary thing. One thing with sound that people may not see is that it's spiritual. So when you listen to this music and it's telling you about these things, and it's telling you to rob, to kill, to sell drugs, to do all these things that are just prideful or braggadocious or whatever, it's actually a spirit or energy that you're embedding into you, like a virus. You see?
Excellent point.
Like a virus, yeah.
No, go ahead, bro.
Yeah. So it's like a virus. So, if you have a computer and you have a virus on it, what are you going to do? You have to get a antivirus. You need a way of getting that stuff out your brain, the feel of your cells. And I think this is where the affirmations come in. This is where listening to, gospel music, although it may not necessarily be your taste if you're not necessarily Christian, but there's still certain types of gospel music that is just inspiring and doesn't necessarily sway your religious beliefs. You have, so much good tracks out there. You put it on, you listen to it, whether you're driving, whether you're working out, and now you're installing that kind of self-talk into how you feel and how you speak to yourself through the day. Yeah.
Excellent. You talked about 432. I'm still not familiar with that either. Could you just explain that and how it relates to hip hop? The 432.
432. So first, let's just explain how the 432 frequency works. And in that, I'm going to show you this little chart right here. Okay, let's see how clear that is. So in this chart here, if you look at, I guess, your top right, it goes from 1, 3, 9, 27, etc. So 1 is considered the C note. And as you move in that horizontal direction, you're tripling. So 1 times 3 is 3, 3 times 3 is 9, 9 times 3 is 27, etc. And as you go vertically, 1 to 2 to 4 to 8, etc., you're getting a higher pitch, or if you're going the same vertical but the other direction, you're getting a lower pitch. So this is a chart of the sounds that are derived from a natural mathematical algorithm. Right?
Okay.
This is the first thing that we have to realize. Those that want to debate and discount the 432 and first must discount the mathematics, but you can't discount the mathematics because this is mathematically sound. So if you look at 432, it's the A note. So when people are talking about 432 based music, they're talking about a method of tuning that gives a reference point to your music. So for instance, I like to give this example. If you have 12 people holding hands, right? So 12 musical notes that are all linked together. And you take one person, let's say the person at the front, at the back, wherever, and you pull their hand. all 12 of them are going to shift. So
Right.
that's
Hmm.
right. So 432 based music is not necessarily 432, singled out and it's a special frequency. No, 432 based music is speaking about using 432 just as a reference point to say that all these 12 people are standing where they're
I want to
supposed
make
to
sure
be.
they hear you, brother. Sorry. I want to make sure they hear you.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Much better now?
Yeah, if you just move that chart, you're good. You're good with the chart.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
I want the people to see you.
all right. Well, um,
12 people.
12 people holding hands, you pull one, uh, all of them start to shift. So 432 is just a reference point speaking about all those people are in a certain position. So when you take that person, you pull them to 440, all the other notes get shifted to a different frequency. So
Mm.
the C note is no longer 512, it's something else. And if you actually look at the mathematics of the different uh, notes based on 440, they're all decimal points. There's no perfection, there's no whole number to them. But if you look at the musical notes of 432, you'll see that there's no decimal points. They're all mathematically sound. And these five notes that emerge, C, G, D, A, E, is the pentatonic scale. Not only that, but look at this. For those familiar with music theory, this is what they call the circle of fifths, if you're going this way, or the circle of fourths. But look, the same C, G, D, A, E, B. C, G, D, A, E, B.
Hmm.
So you want to discount 432, but you can't because even modern day music theory uses this mathematical chart and the musical notes that are derived from it in its modern day music theory in this chart here.
Okay.
This is also known as Pythagorean scale or Pythagorean tuning.
So we know that this came from Egypt. We know it came from, once we hear Pythagoras, I'm like, oh, okay.
All Egyptian, yo.
Yeah, we know where this came from. This came from Africa.
That's right.
So the 432 then I'm getting is some type, just to make it simple, it seems to be like a core frequency of sound.
A reference point.
A reference.
It's a frequency, the A frequency, but when you're talking about 432 base tuning, you're talking about that as a reference point.
But why is that important? Why is 432 such an important thing?
432 hertz tuning as a reference point is so important because if we're made of sound, and the research is there with cymatics, with the mathematics of phi, which is the golden mean ratio. If I may, I want to show you quickly something so that you can get a little piece of what I'm saying. And give me a quick second. I actually need to plug in my laptop battery because this thing is about to.
You're about to go in.
All right, we're good to go. So I want to show you something here. So your question was, what makes 432 so important? So I'm going to have to kind of trace it back to the mathematics of the golden mean, also known as the phi ratio.
Mm-hmm.
So this chart here is the Fibonacci sequence, these numbers going this way. And when it's graphed out, it creates a spiral. And when you look at the ratio of the spiral seen through this golden rectangle, it's 1.618, right? Which also relates to the pentagram because the distance from here to here, or the ratio from here to here, and throughout the whole shape is the same ratio. So what's been found is that all things in nature, for the most part, all have these spirals in it. We're talking hurricanes, we're talking galaxies, plants, pine cones, shells, etc. Right? So now when it comes to the human body, and when it comes to how 432 is involved, what happens is that The same Fibonacci sequence that we see right here. 1 second. The same Fibonacci sequence, every third number, starting at number 8, so 8, 34, and 144, becomes a note. So if you keep doubling 8 and you put it into, let's say, a program called Audacity, you can find it on Google. Download that for free. Go to generate frequency, take number 8, keep doubling it. Eventually you'll get 512, put that in. Tune it to 432, you're going to get the C note right on the dot. If you do the same thing for 34, keep doubling 34, put it in Audacity, keep doubling 144, put that in Audacity, you're going to get the C sharp and then the D. So look at the piano for a second. C, which was number 8. C sharp, which was 34, and then D, which was 144. So this spiral literally is creating music that goes like, ooh. Now, 432 is in the sequence, or in the mathematical sequence that this is part of. Because look, if we go back to the other chart, which is right here, this one is in white, we'll see that 144 is there on that same Fibonacci sequence, the 144. We'll see that, what else is there? The 8 is there, which is the C note. So all these musical numbers relate to the same spiral that creates all the forms in nature, our bodies, and the galaxy, and everything else. You see, this is the intelligence of God, the intelligence of the divine spirit, whatever name you like to use. So 432 is important. Why? Because 432 brings or channels this energy, this spiral energy, this universal energy into the body and into the mind. So when you're listening to music that's been thrown off of 432, you're actually creating a distortion. So instead of your brain being synchronized, you're getting lateralized, you're getting polarized to one side. Your breath is being thrown off. Your heartbeat is being thrown off. So 432 based music is important for the healing, the natural healing of the body and natural thinking of our mind.
Wow. I got a science lesson. Because I'll be real with you, I don't really know anything about this. I don't know. I just heard about the 432 and the 528, and I've listened to a lot of that stuff, and binaural beats, and those frequencies, and I noticed the difference when I listen to it. You have all these videos on YouTube, and some other people that I've worked with in the past actually make some of those frequencies, and it just felt amazing. One person I know was listening to the 420, the 432, or one of them, and bust out in tears. And it was so funny because the video said it was emotional clearing, but I normally when I listen to it, it's put me in such a deep state of kind of alpha and even beyond, right? But this individual was literally crying. It was like an emotional release that came out. And, they thought something was wrong with them. I said, well, what were you doing? They're like, oh, they were listening to those 432. I said, well, that's why. That's you know what I'm saying? It was doing what it said it was supposed to do, which was release the emotions. So
yeah.
Have you had any experiences with sound, or the clients that you've worked with? Could you tell me some benefits that you've experienced?
For sure. I'm going to tell you 2 stories. One story is while I used to work at a school, I was there as a CYW.
Can't barely hear you. Sorry.
I was working at a school.
Yeah.
And we were on a field trip, and I was with the special needs class. So some of the people here have autism and different behavior issues. Now, there's one boy who for months, at least I've been there for at least, at that time, I was there for at least 6 months. Never saw him make eye contact. Never heard him speak, just in his own world. So he's walking around, and then he kind of taps this thing that's like a drum. It was some kind of big metal dome that was stuck to the ground. I don't know if it was like ancient farm equipment that was just buried or whatever it was. But this thing, when he hit it, was hollow and made a sound. So I said, "Hey, this is time for some music." So I go over there and I start, playing it like a drum. What starts happening? He starts to look at me for like the first time, and then he's like smiling and like dancing, and then he starts coming closer to me, and he starts like touching my face. So I'm getting my face touched, and I'm still playing the drums. I'm like, wow, this is different. And everyone there is surprised. His mom is there. The other teachers are there. He's like, wow, like we never seen him like this. So anyways, he goes back to where the bench is, where his mom is. And I continue to play. So then I leave and I go back there too. I want to go get something from my bag. So when I get there, I hear something. And I'm like, I ignore him. Like, I don't know what that was. So his mom looks at me with a shock in her face, like, did you hear what he said? I'm like, he said something? What did he say? He said, I love you, guy.
Wicked.
Whoa. I never expected it. And she was so shocked. She was so, I guess, taken aback, because I don't know if he said that or if he even spoke much before. I'm not sure, but she went over to the drum and started to try to do something as well. So that one there showed me the power of rhythm in sound. So we have two things that make up good music. Many things, but it's two main things. One is the frequency, the right frequency, which is 432 based. And then you have the rhythm, which is more easier to not, mess up, because if you hear music and the rhythm's off, you just won't like it, which is why we can listen to hip hop or a lot of the new kind of destructive type hip hop and still listen to it because the beat's good, right? So what I learned is that the beat, this rhythm, actually causes the brain to synchronize. When the brain synchronizes, all these things of communication, of, our feelings, all get aligned. So another way to now look at even mental health, autism, or any kind of mental issue is what's going on with the coherence of the brain. Are the two sides of the brain synchronized? And I read some studies, some articles discussing that in many cases, if not all cases of anything mental health related, whether it's schizophrenia, whether it's high anxiety, whether it's even autism, there's always a lack of synchronization of the two brain hemispheres. And that's where these things like the binaural beats come into play. That's where these things like drumming. So even drumming can be a type of therapy, especially group drumming. So that's my first story for you. The second story.
Go ahead. It's a dope story, man. Love it.
All right. Thank you, man. The second story deals with going over to my friend's house. So me, him, his wife, and his child brought my instruments over, the Gouda drum, the flute, the big drum. Actually, I'll just show it to you right now. This one I love the sound. So this is the Native American type drum, and it's also an African drum. So
can you play it for us?
For sure.
I love how you play. Can you bring it closer to the mic?
So what I like to do is I have a couple of drums. This is like the granddaddy drum. And then we have the smaller one, the one you play with the two hands. So somebody will play this and kind of set the heartbeat. The other person will play the smaller drum. And then someone else can play the ukulele. And notice all these instruments are tuned to 432. Well, the drum is naturally whatever it is because it doesn't make much of a different frequency, but the ukulele would be tuned to 432. Or maybe it's the guitar. So that right there is the regular guitar notes, the E, A, D, G, whatever. And now I'm going to show you quickly through the tuner how this works. So this right here is 440. So as I'm speaking, there's, anyways, it's best if I tune it to 432. So what I do is I change the setting. And now you see that it's on 432. So it's right basically at the green. So what I've done is that I've tested this 432 with different animals, so bird calls, stuff like that. And I'll see that animal sounds naturally are geared to 432.
Wow. So animal sounds naturally are geared towards the 432.
Exactly. More proof. Mm-hmm. And even at times where I would speak or sing without trying to match my voice, I would see it land very close to the 432. So yeah, so anyways, I would bring the drum, the ukulele, I would bring the Gouda drum, which I'll also show you quickly here. So this Gouda drum, you can custom design and choose your scale. I chose a pentatonic scale, and the reason dealing with the pentatonic scale with what I was showing with, anyways, there's things that I haven't discussed too much yet.
A little louder, please, bro.
So with the pentatonic scale, basically I find it as complete and easier to play. When you play any music with the pentatonic scale, you can't create any disharmony. So you can basically play like a perfect song and not mess up because it's all harmonically related to each other. So I'll take these instruments and then we had like a little jam. So, he would play this drum and she would play the ukulele and I would play, this. And after we finished, she told me, because she was feeling a lot of anxiety at times, that she felt so much relief. Like something was just lifted off of her. And, I was just happy to hear that. So that's the second story. And then last one I'll share with you. This one I didn't really consider too much. But if you look over here, you'll see that there's two crystal bowls here. So one is the C note and one is the G note. So if you remember that chart, that is the perfect fifth. So that sound that you're hearing right now is the perfect fifth, known to help release the nitric oxide. And these are both tuned to 432. So when I do guided meditation, at the schools and at different private events, I'll use either this or another tuning bowl that I have. And people just go into a state, really relaxed, saying that they never felt something like this before. So yeah, these are some of the stories with sound and the different ways you can do it with different instruments.
Those two bowls were called they were called what? They're not singing bowls. Are they called singing bowls?
Yeah, the crystal singing bowls.
Crystal singing bowls.
Yeah.
So it's made out of crystal.
That's right, quartz crystal.
Quartz crystal, and one is the C note and one is the G note.
That's right.
And you say they both give balance. They have harmony together.
Yeah, when played together, the C note and the G note create that perfect fifth, that harmonic that is known to be really healing.
It sounds like it's like almost like a masculine and feminine
I
energy.
think I think so. In fact, in Chinese, so Chinese music and Indian music, and also African music and many other musics are all based on the pentatonic scale. Now, the perfect fifth is one of the harmonics in that pentatonic scale. So imagine you have five fingers. Good
Mhm.
example. Let's say this is C, G, D, A, and E, the five notes of the pentatonic scale or of one pentatonic scale. There's other types. Now, if this is the C note and I combine it with the G note, that's now the perfect fifth. If I take the C note and I combine it with the D note, that's called, I believe, the major second. There's different names for them. So basically, every note combination with the C note gives you a harmonic interval that is healing and mathematically, you could say, found or mathematically ground in the phi ratio, which is that spiral that I was showing you earlier. So with in Chinese music, the perfect fifth is known as the balance between heaven and earth,
Mm.
which is feminine and masculine. In Indian music, the perfect fifth is known as the balance between Shakti and Shiva, which is
Mm.
feminine and masculine. So there's something about the perfect fifth that does something good.
Now you linked it to your fingers. Are these notes actually linked to your fingers?
I believe they are.
So
I
then
believe,
when you've seen the hand mudras, like this is a hand mudra.
yeah.
We use it as okay.
Uh,
But if you're saying that it's linked to these notes, then just doing this hand mudra is actually capturing that energy.
yes, yes, yes. I really believe so. And each one of these fingers also represent an element. And within Chinese and Indian music, that each note in the pentatonic scale is also an element.
Mm-hmm.
So when you combine these together, you're actually having an effect. So definitely there's links all around.
Yeah, I'm loving this conversation. I could speak for hours about this. This is
Yeah.
so deep. Um, I definitely have to get one of those bowls, the crystal singing bowls.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love those sounds. The C and G. As you
See.
played it right now, I just felt so good. I just felt relaxed. But you got to play it again before we end this
Yeah.
recording.
Definitely we got to do something, in person. Because when
Yeah,
you actually play it the proper way, which is basically circling the stick around it, and it continues that sound, and you play the other one, it's amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing.
I'm copying that right away. I'm gonna get that right away, man.
Amazon, cheap.
Amazon.
Yeah, pretty good price.
um, One thing that struck out when I was chilling with some of the indigenous native cultures in the West, we were building sweat lodges, and they used to tell me how the drum itself is a spirit.
Mm.
They said the drum is a spirit, and the stick that you beat the drum is a spirit, and then you're adding your spirit to it, your focus, your intentions, your vibe, and that always struck with me. How we just think of these things as just like it's just a cold, lifeless thing, but actually they're saying no. They treat it as this is actually a spirit,
Mm.
and you're hitting it. You are activating that spirit.
Yeah.
Now, I also thought about the crystal singing bowls and how that's different energy,
Mhm.
which gives it a different sound, which could be a different spirit. What do
Yeah.
you think about that concept? And have you heard about that concept?
Um, I've thought about that concept just as you did, and something that I've reasoned out in my mind. Definitely, there's grounds for it. Um, One thing I'll add, when I was reading in a beloved, amazing book called Autobiography of a Yogi, uh, Paramahansa Yogananda's guru, I believe, was breaking down the understanding of music and the elements. And he described how each musical instrument has an elemental correspondence. So the earth was like the drums. Violins and guitars are like fire. Wind chimes are like air, and the flute is the water.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, there's already, a method in saying that each one of those elements are spirits, which this instrument can embody. So definitely, yeah, I think that they're a spirit. And in fact, I want to share something as well. When I was in Ghana about 3 years ago, I had an opportunity of speaking with somebody who was very knowledgeable in this area and had experiences, and also, knew about the history of it. And he discussed that in the olden times, each family more or less would have a person who would be the chosen one, in a sense, to go and develop and cultivate the spiritual knowledge and spiritual power. And from what I was told, they would go to certain locations, whether it's a forest or, a place with water or whatever. And then he would describe that, I would say in some instances, I think it's very diverse across Africa because it's so huge, and across even tribes. But they would go to, for instance, a forest and wait there. And they said that when they waited there, they would wait until, midnight or whatever. And then they would witness these spirits kind of emerge, whether they materialized, whether they came out the water. I wasn't too clear, but they would emerge and they would be playing music. The spirits would be there playing music and kind of like having a party in the forest. So then they would then come down, let's see a tree that they were hiding in, and come to the location. And then the spirits would kind of like maybe be taken back by surprise and like leave. But when they left, they would leave certain objects. Some of these objects were instruments. Some of these objects were maybe like a ring, some kind of object that when the person then touched, they were then imbued with some kind of spiritual power. They may have been imbued to call upon the spirits that left those objects. Some were known. In fact, he told me that he knew a person that this happened to, in which now when a one-string instrument was left behind. And through playing it, he was able to learn how to do different things, like teleport, something or the other. So definitely spirits, I think instruments came from the spiritual realm. They invoke the spiritual realm. In all cultures, they're known to invoke their ancestors. I'm talking African, Tibetan, Chinese, Indian. So there's definitely something going on with the spirits and the instruments.
So interesting you say that, because today we don't even treat music like that. It's such a weird mindset that we're in now as a people, where the music we create, we don't even value it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And we're just so quick to kind of give it away. And in exchange for, and I get it that people are in dire situations and they don't have the funds or whatever, but to me, I'm seeing this lack of value and lack of respect for what we create, our creativity.
Yeah,
is a big problem, because you're talking about how in ancient times, music wasn't just music. It was seen as something that was sacred, developed from the spiritual world, and then having some powerful effects in our lives. Today, we just treat it as, it's just a song on the radio, or that's just my favorite artist or whatever. We don't even treat it as, no, this is actually something that's from the divine. This is actually a tool. This is actually something that can attune us to different levels of spirituality. And this is actually a spirit, like you said, that we're communicating with when we listen to that music. We're actually communicating with that spirit.
Spirit, that's right. And I want to share a story. I remember passing by my living room and hearing what was on the TV. There were stories of young men who go to these house parties that are playing this really distorted music. Um, they're playing this distorted music, and they would say that I don't know what happened to me, but so basically what was going on was that there were people getting stabbed, killed, or whatever in these house parties, and these different youth would describe how when they were listening to it, they don't know what happened to them, but it felt like it just took over them, made them evil, so to say. So yeah, there's definitely a spirit in music, and it seems like there's evil spirits that are being infused through the lyrics and through maybe other methods that are actually literally grabbing a hold of our community. Many others. We have the heavy metal, we have the trap music, we have different genres that have this distortion in it, and of course you listen to that on a daily basis, and you start embodying that.
Yep. So we're winding down. I want you to tell people what you do, how you can help them, and I'll have your information on my YouTube channel where they can contact you and stuff. But just let people know what you do and how you can help them.
For sure. All right. So in summary, I call myself a well-being coach, and there are a couple ways in which I do that. The first one is dealing with nutrition. Everything is music, everything is sound. So even as I name these different areas, I want you to envision that the body is solid state sound. Our emotions and mental are then sound that are more solid, that are less solid. So well-being is actually having coherency in your body, which means all your nutrition, your hormones, all your breathing is correct. Even your posture is very important. So that's the holistic nutrition aspect. I do stuff also with mental, I like to call mental reprogramming or mental morphosis. And basically that's where we use the power of sound, the voice, and affirmations to then kind of install these powerful beliefs into our mind, And another aspect deals with relationships. So just like, so for instance, if you're having family issues or relationship issues, one of the best ways of actually healing that is through singing and sound. So whether it's me bringing in my instruments or devising some kind of technique, and we, as a group, dissolve that tension through playing together. If you go on www.lightbodywellbeing.com, you will see some of the other contents. In the blog, I love to dance. So I have a couple of dance videos of me expressing my coherence, expressing my sound through my body.
What dances do you do? You do a zanto, or you do break dance? What do you do?
I will say a combination of hip hop and expressive dancing, or I don't know if it's called contemporary, but yeah, some good stuff. So I got some stuff there. I like to write poetry and articles, scientific articles. So there's a couple of stuff there and more stuff to come later on. And you'll see some things with what I'm doing with the portfolio and pictures of the different events. So for anybody who wants to get into, what I'm dealing with, you can always send me an email at lightbodywellbeing@gmail.com. Check out the site and say hello.
Well, I think the ladies will say hello.
Well, ladies, I am committed already. But then again, hello is just a hello.
Let them know right now.
I'll say hello back.
I'm just playing, but no, thank you so much for coming on my channel, man. And we're gonna link up and do some work together, because a lot of the work that I do kind of cross references what you do, and I know I'm going to learn a lot from you as well in relation to sound and incorporating, tightening up my sound game for my meditation. So I really appreciate you coming on, man, and contact this brother. You do one-on-one private consultations, right?
That's right.
And you could do distance, over the phone, right?
Yep, distance as well.
Yep. You could book him out if you have an organization and you want to do a retreat, or you want to do a session and you need a sound healer, someone who's very trained, very advanced, is the real deal, brother, who sleeps, breathes, and eats this stuff. Contact him. All right. Anything else?
One thing that came to my mind that I really need to share is this right here. So for many people who are getting into sound, whether it's 432, whether it's whatever it is, it's actually not really the sound that counts, although it is, but actually the feel of your heart. So I'm just going to show you a little picture here that is from Heart Math Institute, which is an institute that is doing really amazing work with the magnetic field of the heart, and how when you're in good emotions, you create this strong magnetic field, which then entrains or resonates with your brain to also make it, to also bring the brain into coherence, which is, happy thinking, creativity, good ability to visualize, etc. So I'm going to show you this picture right here. And just to give you an image, when we speak or sound is not just a wave, it's a bubble. And this is some stuff you can find online with cymatics or cymoscope.org. Just Google it. Now, this lady here playing the violin, 3D rendition, cut the bubble in half, look at it, two-dimensional, that's the geometry, right? So yeah, when you speak, when you make a sound that's resonant, that's 432 bass especially, even if it's not 432 bass, you're creating a bubble of geometry. But what actually makes that geometry more stronger, have more influence and more healing, is this geometry, which is the torus shape that is being emitted from your heart, right? So this geometry actually embeds itself into this geometry. So if this is strong, this becomes strong. So if your emotions are strong and you're feeling what you're seeing, whether you're talking to somebody or you're singing, whatever it is, you can embed that into here and make this strong. So the last piece I want to say is just, even if you're doing your affirmations, to be doing it from a state of feeling. And how do you do that? Of course, we're trying to actually get more feeling with the affirmation. But how do you do that? Do things like your dancing or your drumming or your exercise before your affirmations. Do whatever you need to do to decrease the tension, boost your nutrition, especially increase your water that's mineralized, get this field strong, and then embed this field into your sound, and then watch yourself and your world transform. That's it.
Excellent point. Excellent point. That's how you do affirmations and magic. That's how you cast spells, is through feelings. You bring it to life. And that's an excellent point. I love the idea of the bubble, how you broke that down, and in the heart. Excellent. So
beautiful.
Any last words before we say peace to anybody out there, or anything you want to say?
And everybody, keep your focus on what you want to get. Have an affirmation for yourself, something that you can say to yourself that will make you feel good. Even if you don't feel it, just have it and keep repeating it. And just make sure you go outside and get some fresh air every day.
For real.
That's it.
All right. Thanks, bro. We'll do this again next time, man, because I know you got a lot more to say.
All right, everyone. Take care. Stay blessed.
Yes, man. You as well. Contact the brother. I know he's probably working on some classes too, as well. Check out my classes, my Patreon, and some of the work that I do around the mind, boosting your mind power and reprogramming your subconscious mind. Peace.
Peace.